Welcome to the second video in our Transformative Talk series, where CGI talks to leaders in financial services about their transformation journeys. I'm Paul Gallucci, Senior Vice President with CGI in our banking, insurance, and payments. I'm joined today by Tina Robinette from TD Bank, who's the Senior Vice President responsible for the Next Evolution of Work program, or NEW as it's affectionately known at the bank. Welcome, Tina.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited about what we're doing. There's so much going on, and I can't wait to share our story with you.
Fantastic. So why don't we get started right into it? Provide us with a little context. What is NEW, or the Next Evolution of Work?
Yeah, the Next Evolution of Work that we affectionately call NEW is our transformation about our operating model. It's all about future-proofing us so that we can compete with the market at speed to drive great outcomes for our customers and our colleagues.
So a pretty straightforward transformation, I'm sure. So now we understand what it is. Let's talk a little bit about the why. I mean, this is a pretty significant change that you're talking about. Why did TD go down this path, and what are the objectives that you're looking to accomplish?
Yeah, we've had a really successful time, and we've had a traditional approach to how we bring outcomes to market for customers. And what we're finding now is, as you all know, customers' expectations are changing. The market is moving quickly. They expect experiences that are much more seamless, more digital, and they want things brought to life faster. They don't want to wait, 12 months for you to come out with some new product or some new feature. And so we chose now as the right time for us, as we're thinking about future-proofing the bank, to say we need to go through this transformation now so that we can get out there and really start to bring that to life for our customers and our colleagues.
Excellent. So really looking to make a change for not only your customers, but your colleagues as well. We all know that it's been challenging in the last few years to maintain engagement with members inside our organizations as well as with our clients. Fantastic. So I always find it interesting to understand a little bit more about the profile of leaders that are attracted to these types of initiatives. I mean, again, major organizational change program that's happening in the bank with some pretty, I think, aggressive objectives right now. What drew you to the program? And when you consider these types of programs, what are the attributes that you think make a leader successful? And I'm sure you've seen some pros and cons over the last little while. You've seen some ups and downs. Give us some perspective on the types of leadership qualities you think are important.
Yeah, what drew me to this opportunity is how often do you have an opportunity in your career to make a major change across a large organization that has a great track record around innovation and performance already. But there's an opportunity to make a real impact. And for me, it's really about that impact in our customers' lives. When we think about financial services these days and you think about how a customer uses these things, you want it to be a seamless but a great experience for them. It used to always be a task. It was always a task to go deal with your financials, right? You got to pay a bill, you got to do this, you have to do that. So for me, it was about that opportunity to say, we want to change that for our customers and change their lives. And so having an opportunity as part of this transformation and changing the operating model and how we do that meant we were going to be able to do that faster, bring more innovative opportunities to customers. And then there's our colleague base, as you've pointed out. We have a very colleague engagement DNA in our culture. Like that is just fundamentally what we are at TD. And so this opportunity is like anybody else, you work with your customers. Oh, yeah. It is cumbersome to work in a bank and get work done. It can be a lot of process, a lot of different controls, and colleagues get frustrated. Right? They get frustrated. They want to do the right work. They want to do the work that is going to matter and make a difference. And so having the opportunity to do this transformation again and really make it great for the colleagues and the teams on the ground to be able to really focus on the right work and feel really excited and engaged about that and attract that talent and retain that talent.
It's interesting at CGI we spend a lot of time talking about meaningful work, and I think that's exactly what you're saying, which is and I think banks as well as technology companies sometimes get a bad rap for being focused on bottom line, and I think that's really shifted, and I'm seeing that in the work that we're doing with TD. Yeah. The focus is no longer about that transaction of I need to go to the bank to do something. It's more about the journey that you're looking at for your customer. How are you helping them acquire new assets? How are you helping them get their first home? And it's a real shift that I've seen in the last 15 years or so. And I think TD's sort of leading that charge.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. Certainly banks get a lot of slack about this. And it doesn't help that we're regulated and we have, a regulator. And so often we get lost in the control in the process.
Right.
And that starts to weigh you down. And people almost use it as a bit of an excuse, right? I have to do these things because we're regulated. Well, we can manage risk and we can deliver with speed for our customers and still do what we need to do to make sure that we're delivering in a safe and secure way. So what we want to do, to your point, is remove that waste so that we can focus on the right work, manage the risk appropriately, but drive better outcomes for colleagues and customers.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic, because one of the things that we've seen really impede the success of some of these larger transformations is sort of the apathy that comes around, well, we can't do that because, there's challenges with risk and governance because you are regulated entities. But I think it's fantastic that you really took it head on and addressed risk and governance in these programs.
Yeah, and even in our operating model and the structures and the processes that we're implementing, one of the key enablers that we're implementing is something called our risk marketplace. And the risk marketplace is all about bringing all of the right compliance and control partners together, shifting them left in the process. So your colleagues are going to know this. So our audience is going to understand what I'm talking about. We all know the later something happens in the delivery life cycle, the more complex it is, the higher opportunity for error, and the more costly it is. So a lot of what we're doing is about how do we shift left. And so risk marketplace is how we're shifting left from a governance control point of view so that they're engaged very early in the process with the teams. They're helping the teams as they move along. And then we can move faster instead of getting to the end, having to rework and go back again. So it's really important part of it.
Yeah, I think it's critically important what you just said there, which is getting all of the teams involved early on instead of our traditional project life cycle where legal risk compliance come in at the end and have the opportunity to say, you forgot about us. Right. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I imagine this has been a journey. I mean, I think you've achieved some pretty significant some of your significant objectives to date, but help me understand, where are you in that journey? When did you get involved? Sort of what's the timeline been for that? And has there been an evolution, or is it same objectives you started with or where you are today?
Yeah, for sure it's been an evolution. And I think as we all know, and I'm a technologist at heart as well, Agile's been around for decades and decades. But financial institutions were a little bit later adopting it and really bringing it into how they deliver change. And so our Agile journey, like many others, started long ago. I joined TD 5 years ago, and we were just then on a large Agile transformational change. And really what we were doing is delivering projects using Agile methodology. Right. And so as we did that, we started to evolve our thinking and our strategy to think about customer journeys. Of course, customer journeys became a really big thing. And so we started looking at end-to-end customer journeys. What is an end-to-end customer journey? And truly end-to-end, right from beginning, right through to operations, and what does that journey really feel like? So we started dabbling in that a few years ago as well. We started our initial foray into that with some pilots and some lighthouses with something we called the homeowner's journey. And so we really took that to say, okay, if we structure ourselves differently so that we can drive outcomes faster in that kind of an experience, what would that look like? And so that was back in the 2019 timeframe. We started evolving that to say, now we've got our experience in what we think Agile is. We know what end-to-end customer journeys are. How do we evolve this to really move at scale across the bank? And so we did a lot of research. We went and visited a lot of organizations over in Europe, and Australia is another place, and started looking at what they were doing when they were looking at scale and moving to a product-based delivery kind of model, more like technology firms building software as well, right? You think of the Amazons, the Googles, and things like that. So that journey has started a few years ago for us. We really started the new program about 2 years ago now, really refining our approach, our strategy, our playbooks, and talking about how are we going to bring this to life and actually roll this out across the entire enterprise, business and technology. This is not a traditional technology agile change. Right. This is not just about technology assets. This is about our business and our business partners. Risk marketplace was one thing, customer journeys is another. So it's across all of that.
So you ventured on this major organizational change and technology change and business change. And then the pandemic hit.
Yep.
Did you have to pivot? Did it drive additional commitment from the executive? What happened then?
Yeah, as the pandemic has been a very fascinating and interesting time for all of us, challenging in lots of different ways. And so you can imagine the challenges we faced while we were trying to pivot and respond to the market and for our customers while we're trying to do this significant transformational change. So it did change our strategy a bit, not our strategy, our approach a bit and how we were going to roll it out. So we were grounded in our strategy. And then we looked to say, okay, while we're doing all of these other things and need to stay focused on how we're responding to the pandemic, how do we still keep moving forward? And so we shifted a little bit. We chose 2 of our enterprise platforms and we started to implement in those 2 platforms called our servicing platform and our data as a service platform. And then we started to move through standing those up, implementing those, testing and learning with those with our, a couple of journeys in our personal bank space as well. But the thing that happened during the pandemic that was a blessing in disguise or just an opportunity that we never would have had any other way. Even our teams that were responding to the pandemic, we had to respond to new offers from the government. We had to respond to, people being able to bank without getting into the branch and stuff. And so we kicked up a lot of small cross-functional teams to go out and address this in an agile, really fast way. And so really what we did is set up a whole bunch of little pilots and test cases around the organization to deliver those outcomes. And what it did for us is it did a couple of things. One, it proved to the senior executives, let's admit, they were still a little bit, okay, I get it. I get the strategy. I don't know about seeing this thing in action. Right. So they saw it in action. They saw the colleagues and it proved, wow, we can actually do this. We can empower our colleagues. These small cross-functional teams really make a difference. And so it was almost like a little test case to say, wow, this works. And we got a lot of momentum and wind in our sails from that, from a buy-in point of view, both leadership and colleagues, right?
I think it's interesting because I think a lot of organizations, ours included, had to do the same thing, right? Yeah. Help our customers react to changes that needed to be in overnight. Yeah. And the ones that were most successful were the ones that already had dabbled with agile and were on that train. And I think there is, and I'll be interested in your perspective on this, but I think there's this misconception that the day that you transition to agile teams, all of a sudden, speed increases and costs go down, right? I'm sure that wasn't your experience immediately.
No. And for us too, because it's beyond just the agile teams delivering technology capabilities. Right. It's our agile teams and our end-to-end customer journeys and experiences. And so we have something we call the 3 horizons. There's what are all the great goodness you get out of moving to the model, standing up the structures, starting to teach teams how to work in agile, having self-empowered cross-functional teams. So you get a lot of really great goodness out of that. You simplify process. Right. But then there's the maturity. As they mature into it, as we mature into it, as we mature into our customer end-to-end journeys, as we evolve our technology platforms and start modernizing our platforms, then you start getting this compounding effect. You get your scale across your organization when you think about technology and our assets and our platforms. We want to get scale out of that across the organization. And then you think of our customer journeys end to end and really thinking about that customer and colleague experience. So you start to get that compounding. We're in that right now. So we're in the early stages. We've just implemented some of our platforms. We've just implemented many of our journeys. We're about to just be on the cusp of what we call the Canadian Personal Bank All-In. So all of its adjacent business functions working in this model now. Yeah. And now we're going to have to mature into that. But we're seeing lots of really great early success stories and colleagues coming out and talking about and showing us how it's actually making it easier and faster for them.
That's fantastic. I think I've seen, in my years of consulting, I've seen lots of transformation programs that are successful and many that were not so successful. And I think one of the things that differentiates them is really the commitment from not only the top of the house, but from the teams. They have to feel, like you said, empowered, and they have to see those results. I mean, it sounds like that resonates with what's happening here. Yeah,
you're right, because it is both ways, right? Like, this is about the teams on the ground, smaller teams on the ground. How do we make it easier for them to get work done? They're closer to the work. They know what the work needs to happen. But you come from an organization where, traditionally, what are we? Command and control and directive. And so you've got a leadership team, and then you've got, a team on the ground, and the two have to meet, and they have to meet in a really great way. So, the fascinating thing about this is you can do all the people, process, technology changes you want. You can simplify all kinds of controls and processes, but it's the culture and mindsets and behavior that underpin it. If you can't make a move in that, it's going to be really, really hard to actually get the outcomes, because really what you'll just have is command and control in new ceremonies. You guys know Agile. You guys are technologists. Yeah. We're going to the PI planning and somebody's just going to tell you, go do this, that, and the other. So the culture, the mindset, and that leadership style has to go with it.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time empowering our members over the last few years. And it's, I think, very similar to what you were saying. It's not just about what we say, is about what we do. It's about the culture and the behavior that we encourage, and it's a change in the way that we engage with our members, I think. Because before, like you said, command and control. Here is what we need you to do today, and now it's, here's the objective we're trying to reach. How can you help us?
Exactly. Yeah, turning from outputs to outcomes is key in this. And the other really key one is progress over perfection. Yeah. We all know, what do we do when we get into projects? We think we're going to exactly tell you right down to the last, period in the sentence, what exactly I need from a requirements point of view. Then I'm going to design it, and then I'm going to deliver it, and it's going to be what you want. We know that's not how it works. We've all delivered. And so that progress over perfection is really, really critical. And my other favorite one is psychological safety, right? Where you have a leadership team that you have to challenge when they start coming out and being really directive. And you have to say, excuse me, but that's my pod's role to do that, not your role to do that anymore. And so we're doing a lot of work on culture, mindsets, and behaviors, especially with the senior leadership teams, because they have the biggest learning curve, quite frankly.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I've seen a big shift inside TD, inside CGI, and other organizations that we're actually talking about behaviors. Mm-hmm. Before it was, your performance was all based on your objectives, and did you meet your objectives, and there were hard metrics and numbers. And now we're actually starting to focus on what are the behaviors that make us successful. And I love that. That's
how
great.
You get the work done is as important as what is the work you're getting done.
Absolutely. So maybe if you could share your thoughts for others out there that may be going through similar, starting or maybe midway, any advice for others that are engaging in a similar?
Yeah, we did a lot of learning, and we went and talked to a lot of organizations to say, what did you learn? And more about what did you learn about yourselves as you were going through this, right? Because you have to know your own organization. You have to know what are the biggest barriers you're going to have to get over in your own organization. And you have to be really, really clear on what is your objective. Yeah. Speaking of objectives, what is it you're trying to achieve? And then what's the best way for you to get there? When we went and talked, as many know, the Australian banks, there was a crisis going on over there. And so they were imploding. They had to take a very different approach. And so they took a very different, holistic, pivot the entire organization all at one time approach. Here, we're in a growing, investment market right now at TD. We're investing, we're modernizing. We've got, lots of things we're trying to drive for our customers. And so we're saying, we know we need to get faster and better to compete. So we're future-proofing while we're still going through this transformation. So our approach is a little bit different in terms of how we're going segment by segment. So you really got to know, do your homework, understand what your objective is, why you want to do it, and then you can figure out what's the best way, because there's lots of different paths.
Great. Excellent advice. And I guess last question for me, CGI and TD have long been partners, at least on the technology side of things, and we help out in a number of lines of business. And I've seen my team adjust so that we're aligned to the new ways of working with the bank. Any other advice for us or other partners of yours on how to best support your goals and objectives?
Yeah, listen, we need our partners. We're on a big journey. We have a lot we need to do. We're in an investment cycle, as I said, for delivering new outcomes. So we need our partners. So what you can do to help us, one, Agile. So bring those skills to the table. We need those skill sets really badly. Also, understanding, the difference between Agile at scale versus Agile project methodology. That's another really great opportunity. And bringing those teams together that understand how to work in those small, cross-functional, product-based approaches. And then lastly, we need you to help us. We need to start driving outcomes. We need to think about how do we structure deals so that they're outcome-based, that fit right into our model, so that the teams understand how they're going to drive outcomes together.
Yeah, absolutely. It does shift the way that we work together, and the contracts and ways of working together, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Tina, for taking the time to meet with us today. Really enlightening. Would love to get back together in a year from now and see how things are going.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really enjoyed sharing our story with you, and I look forward to our continued partnership.